Welcome into this week's edition of the Coaches Show. We've got soccer and football action on this week's show. Joining me right now is head men's and women's soccer coach Tom Cosgrave. Tom, thanks for joining me as always.
Thanks for having me.
And Coach, we'll jump right into it. We'll start off with the girls like we always do. Started off the week on a little bit of a bumpy road. You had to go up to Itawamba, and we talked the week before. Anytime you've got to go up there, it's a real tough trip. Just because it's so far away, you've got to get off a bus and kind of get ready to play. And the result wasn't what we wanted to see. You lost 5-1. But talk about how you feel about how the team played despite the loss.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those days. We said that to the girls afterwards. You're not always going to be able to have good days. There's always going to be bad days as well. And I think that was our one. It was tough getting off the bus and trying to go straight into it. But I thought we started the game all right. The first 5 minutes, we spoke to the girls about the lethargicness and energy levels coming off a long bus trip. The first 5-10 minutes of the game, we started off well, had a couple of bright sparks, had a couple of chances that we probably could have capitalised on a different day. And then they just dropped a little bit from there. We had a few costly errors that led to some goals, and then it's always an uphill battle against a good side as well up there.
Kind of feels like if maybe one of those chances had gone in, it might have been a different story. But as you kind of alluded to, halftime, you're down 3-0. Had a couple of defensive miscues that led to a couple of early goals, and then they scored a really good goal there right before the half. But talk about the feeling at halftime. You kind of feel like you're down 3-0, but you've seen they scored 3 goals, and you've certainly seen that your team is capable of it. How are you feeling at halftime despite being down 3-0?
Yeah, that was the message to the girls. We said, look, if they can score 3 in one half, we can as well. I said, luckily that first half is done now, so there's no excuses about the bus or lethargicness or energy levels. We said, if we score the first goal coming out to this second half and we get an early goal, we can put them under pressure. Momentum's a massive thing in soccer. So we said, score the first one and keep pushing and see if we can get a result from it.
And you go into the second half, and you do exactly that. It takes you a little bit going, but it's almost kind of the exact same mark where Itawamba had scored their first goal. You get your first and what is ultimately the only goal. Avery Rankin steps up, slots a PK into the back of the net in about the 66th minute. Just talk about her approach to that shot.
Yeah, she played really well. She was our little bright spark that we had going forward, and we needed that goal. It was a good timing to get it as well, to make it 3-1. And we thought after that goal that we might get a little bit of energy and go from there, but it wasn't meant to be. They went down the other end and scored within, I think, 30 seconds, and that kind of crushed us a little bit.
Right, and so obviously we just talked about that. It's 4-1 after they get that goal back. They maintain regain their 3-goal lead and then score again late, and ultimately you get the 5-1 loss. But another bright spot, I think, is despite the fact that Laura gave up 5 goals, she still had 8 saves. So she still saved well over 50% of the shots she faced. Saw 13 shots, saved 8. Talk about how well she played despite that loss.
Yeah, she made some big saves for us, especially whenever it was 3-0 to try and keep us in the game in the second half. I think she pulled off 2 really good saves from long-distance shots that allowed us to keep it at 3-0. But I think just we made too many defensive errors in 1v1 defending in that game, and I think it just shown when you play against a good team like that, you can't have a bad day.
Right, but fortunately you get to Friday and you bounce back. You host Meridian, you get back to Stone Stadium in the friendly confines there, and you bounce back. You get a 1-0 win. You get a late goal in the first half, despite a delayed start to the first half because of an official getting lost, going to the wrong address. That was quite a trip for us, waiting to start the stream and those kind of things. But Emmy Cook gets her 4th goal of the year, and Charlie gets an assist on her goal in the 38th minute. Just talk about that shot.
Yeah, every game that we play in this conference is difficult, and Meridian, we knew that coming into it, we're going to make it really difficult for us to score, and sometimes you got to be creative and find different ways to score, especially when a team's playing a low block where there's not much spacing behind. And so we counted on our set pieces, and we've been working on them a lot this season because obviously games can be won and lost on set pieces, as you've seen. And they executed the plan almost perfect, but we'll still take it we'll still take the goal.
I think if you go back and listen to my call on the goal, I was talking about she's just going to take a shot towards the goal, and all of a sudden it goes in. I don't think anybody was ready for that shot to go in, but fortunately it did. And then you go throughout the rest of the match, despite a heavy attack from the Lady Eagles. Your team only gives up 3 shots on goal. Laura saves all of them. Talk about how well she played, rebounded from not her best game stat-wise, or the scoreline says not her best game stat-wise, but talk about how well she rebounded and played in that game.
Yeah, we wanted a reaction from the girls. We talked to them about it this week, and we said, the mindset is everything. You've got to come back with confidence and be concentrating the whole game. They've got a couple of good forwards that can punish you at any point. And I thought we'd done a really good job of shutting that girl down. I think she's got 14 goals on the season so far, and we just made sure we double teamed her every time. And defensively, we were a lot better in that game than we were against Itawamba. And then Lara had to make a couple of saves for us. Nothing too crazy, but she made them when we needed her to.
And obviously coming up, the schedule doesn't get easier. You got the first of 3 straight ranked opponents, and a team in Holmes was number 1 in the nation. We say was because they're now coming off the first loss of the season, fell at the hands of Northwest, so they dropped to number 3. Northwest moves up to number 1. We don't have to see them till next week, thankfully, but it doesn't get much easier going forward. 3 out of the last 4 against ranked opponents, but what are you expecting out of the Lady Bulldogs from Holmes?
Yeah, like I said, any game in this conference is difficult. Whether it's Holmes or some of the teams in the middle of the table or bottom of the table, they're fighting in a different way, and so we know they've got a lot of firepower going forward. But we're gonna give it our best shot. We've got a pretty good game plan that we're gonna try and execute against them. And luckily for us, we've done a really good job of winning the games that we needed to win this season. And so at this point, when we play these teams, we're in a nice position now going into the part of this last part of the season where anything that we do pick up is a nice bonus for us.
And so we're going to swap over to the guys side now. Guys had, I don't know if you'll call it a better week, but they got results in every game they played, which is what you want to see on a soccer field and in the action, especially in conference play. We'll start with the Itawamba game, a 0-0 tie, but probably one of the most exhilarating and thrilling ties you could possibly have. Talk about how the guys played.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. But going into the game, both coaches, we were talking beforehand, and we're kind of in a similar situation. Both got good teams, just finding it difficult to get the win or score goals even on in some games. And then I think that just shown exactly what the reason why behind that. Both teams struggled to score goals. I think the first half we were much the better team, and we could have been leading 3-0 at halftime. And then in the second half, they flipped it, and they were the better team, and they couldn't score either. So, it's always a difficult place to go up there and travel that far, but to come away with a point, I'll take it at that point.
And credit to both the goalies, I think. Both of them just played with their hair on fire. And if you look at the stat line, Leo actually performed better than the goalie for Itawamba, although both had a clean sheet, but Leo had a career-high 16 saves. I was sitting at home watching that one, didn't get to travel with y'all to that one, unfortunately, and it just seemed like every time you needed a big save, Leo was like, I got it today. Yeah. Just talk about how well he played in that one.
Yeah, second half performance was probably one of the best ones I've seen from a goalkeeper in my time here at Co-Lin. There was 4 or 5 opportunities that I was like, it's definitely a goal for them, and he just stepped up big and just made massive saves. But that's part of him being a leader and being a sophomore, trying to lead by example for some of these boys. When we need him to come up with big saves, that's what he's been doing all year. He came in clutch for us there in the second half.
I think we would be remiss if we don't mention probably the biggest play of the game. Wasn't a save, it was a clearance. It was Dylan and Gamalu, and I'm sitting there watching, and a ball that just kind of squeaked by Leo, and you just see it slowly roll into the goal, and I'm in the back of my mind going, no, not like this, please, not like this. And I know you're probably thinking the same thing. And then all of a sudden Dylan just comes in and clears the ball out, and you can hear over the stream guys just go nuts because he clears that out. Talk about how big that, because I know it was late and may not have gotten a chance to get an equalizer there. Talk about how big that play was.
Yeah, it was massive for us. And again, similar to Leo, Dylan's been a rock for us back there this season. And I think that was that kind of exemplified our performance from going up there. That was the first time that we've really seen a real true gritty performance of togetherness, where if someone was messing up, somebody was there to cover each other. When we said that to the boys afterwards, we were like, that's what it needs to be every game. If someone messes up, someone else has got their back. And we were celebrating goal line clearances and saves just as much as we are as goal. And coming from a defender, that means a lot. It was nice to see.
And then you come back Friday, you're at home, you get to host Meridian in a game where you had a draw, and this is probably one of those draws. Again, we've talked about several of these, but this is definitely one where you feel like you're happy that you got a point, but you're upset that it was a draw. Mm-hmm. Just because you felt like that was a team that, you get back here, you're at home, you want to rebound, you've gotten 1 point, but it's not. It would have been nice to get 3, but you still get 1. Talk about how the guys performed in that one.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, it was definitely felt like 2 points dropped than it was 1 point gained. These are some of the games when we're looking back at the performances and the results from this year. These are ones that we're getting a little disappointed at, where we should be taking away 3 points. I thought we'd done enough to take 3 points away, but at the end of the day, you're only as good as the scoreline says. So difficult game.
And we'll get into the scoring. And Meridian took an early lead in the 11th minute. You kind of felt like it was a goal that could have been stopped, but they're still up 1-0 at that point, and you're thinking, it's early enough, you're not out of it. And this is at the moment, the next moment, Alfie, I don't know if he went into a phone booth and put on a Superman costume or what he did, but he turned into Super Alfie, because this is he factors into all 4 goals for you. He starts off and he ties the game up with a goal in the 12th minute off a free kick. Talk about his approach on that shot.
Yeah, he had a few easier chances actually before that chance came up. He had 2 or 3 one-on-ones with the keeper that he missed, and he was getting a little frustrated with himself. And we just said to him, just relax. You're going to get more opportunities in this game. You got to be ready for the next one. Which he ended up scoring the more difficult one chance of them all. He practices those after practice all the time, and the way he strikes a ball is excellent. So when it was in that range and that area, me and JT kind of looked at each other, and we figured that it was going to be a difficult shot for the keeper to save. And Alfie struck it cleanly, and the goalkeeper couldn't get enough on it to get it out.
So then you're tied, and it was literally just 1 minute after Meridian had scored. So you kind of felt like you had seized the momentum back that Meridian had gotten there. So you're tied 1-1. You go for a few minutes, no goal scoring, but then you take a lead 2-1, and it's a guy that we've wanted to see score, and he's had some opportunities to score, just hadn't been able to finish. He finally was able to finish this one. First goal of the year, Park Smith beats the keeper with an assist from Alfie in the 25th minute. You're up 2-1. Talk about that goal.
Yeah, he got a breakaway, as he does a lot this season. We just told him, we tell him all season as well, just have a little bit more composure when you get in front of the goal. He puts himself into some great positions just because of his athleticism, but sometimes I think he gets a little frantic with his decision making and sometimes rushes his shot. But I was glad to see him get a good strike on the ball and get a goal, because he deserves it. He's probably one of the hardest working players on the team, so it was nice for him to get a little reward.
Now, unfortunately, if you're looking at one thing, the bad thing is the lead was short-lived. Meridian bounces back. They score in the 26th minute, tie it. They score 3 minutes later, the 29th minute. Now they're up 3-2. And, you're not panicking at that point, because, again, it's 29th minute. You've still got a lot of soccer left. And if we're honest, it didn't take us long to respond again. Alfie comes up with another goal, another free kick, just a beauty of a kick. And his reaction to it, I think as soon as he struck it, he knew it was in. But talk about that goal in the 30th minute and how big it was to be able to tie it at 3-3 right there.
Yeah, we said to the boys, don't panic. We knew we were going to create a lot more chances. We'd already created 15 or 16 chances at that point anyway, even being 3-2 down. So we said we just got to have a little bit more composure at the back and stop making these silly mistakes, and our strikers are going to do the job going forward. And then the free kick he hit even better than the first one. I think the first one was a warm-up and a practice for this one, because this one was perfect, right in the stanchion. And it doesn't matter what goalkeeper was in there. There was no way anyone was going to save that. It was a great strike.
It was a world-class goal, in my opinion. So you go into halftime. Fortunately, no more scoring done at that point. It kind of feels like it was fast and furious there for a little bit, and everything kind of calmed down for a little bit. You're tied 3-3, and you kind of feel like you're going to get the better of the opportunities in the second half. But talk about how you felt about going into halftime being tied 3-3.
Yeah, we just said to the boys, we're like, look, just stop letting the other team score goals. We need to keep a clean sheet for the second half. We're creating enough chances going forward that we're going to win the game. We just need to be a little bit smarter defensively. We're making a few too many errors with our positioning and just switching off against a fast, athletic forward. And we told them, just let the strikers do their thing and keep it tight at the back for us. And we were confident going into the second half, thinking that we were going to win. And
you do take the lead in the 61st minute. Little bit of a crazy play. It was an open net goal eventually, but Fran gets another goal, 61st minute, with an assist from Alfie. So for those keeping home, that's 2 goals, 2 assists, again, factored into all 4 scoring opportunities. Talk about the goal, talk about the crazy play. If you go back and watch it, I know you see Parks kind of trying to chase down the ball, and unfortunately the Meridian defender and Meridian goalkeeper kind of run into each other, and the ball just falls out at Fran's feet, and he's like, well, I'll take the goal. but talk about the play.
Yeah, again, similar to what I mentioned before, Parky creates a lot of stuff for us just because of his pace, his athleticism and work rate. And I think the defender was a little worried about his pace getting in behind, and there was a bit of miscommunication between him and the goalkeeper. They ran into each other, and if you're a forward and you're Fran, that's the type of goals that you want, especially when you're struggling for a few goals, for it to land 8 yards out from goal with nobody in the net, that's an easy tap in for him. So it was nice for him to get another goal.
Yeah, you always love to take an easy one every now and then. And it kind of seems like at that point, like despite a heavy attacking presence again from Meridian, your defense is up to the task. They don't let anything by them. But then in the 82nd minute, just a little bit, I think, of a misplay by Leo, unfortunately, allows the ball to creep into the net, and they tie it 4-4. And then, neither team can get a fifth goal to possibly get a win there. But talk about, the end of the match. Obviously, again, disappointed in a 4-4 draw, but you still got the result. You still got a point. It still gets you where you need to be going towards postseason play. But just talk about the end of the match.
Yeah, obviously a difficult pill to swallow there at the end. Conceding a goal like that and that nature, especially after Leo's had such a good season for us. But as part of the game, everyone's going to make mistakes and errors, and we just need to be a little bit more mature with our performances and stop giving away silly goals from mistakes and give our team opportunities to get the 3 points. We keep throwing away the points at the moment, and at some point in the season, it's going to come back and bite us. So we've got to make sure that these last 4 games that we can finish out and seal the deal and get the 3 points.
We do want to mention Leo still did have 5 saves, so he did save a little bit over half of the shots that he faced. So not the result he would want either, but did still managed to save more than half of the goals he faced. Now, you stepped out of conference play to play your last non-conference action, went over to Birmingham, Alabama, played a neutral site game against Oxford College of Emory University, and bounced back in a huge way. Got a 3-0 win. We were talking before we started the shoot. When you sent me the starting lineup, I said people are going to look at this and go, yeah, these are names we haven't seen very often in the starting 11, but turned out that it worked out great. Talk about the guys' performance.
Yeah, we said to the boys after Friday, we said we need to give some of the other boys who haven't got too many minutes in the conference play. They've been working hard in practice, and we wanted to give them a reward. So we looked at Saturday's game as a perfect opportunity to give some of those guys some valuable experience and minutes. So we mixed up the lineup a little bit, and we started excellent. It was a great way to start the game with a goal in the first 10-15 seconds.
And obviously, we'll talk about that a little bit more. We would be remiss if we didn't say Asa Hurst set school history, set a school record, fastest goal in a match in school history, scored 15 seconds in. Again, another game where Alfie factored into all the scoring opportunities because he had an assist on the goal. Talk about the goal itself.
Yeah, we told the boys that, again, similar to the bus ride, we want to make sure that we start strong, start quick with a lot of energy. And I think some of the boys that were in the 11 were excited to be in there, and they had a point to prove. And so they came out flying. We won the ball back straight away. Alfie played a ball towards Asa, and their defender, I'm not too sure what he was doing, but the defender just completely missed it, and Asa felt like he must have won the lottery because he was 1-on-1 with a goalkeeper after 10 seconds and just slotted it home and got the goal straight away.
So you're up 1-0 early. They've got to be stunned, and you think you're going to be off to the races and score a lot of goals, but you don't score another one until the 34th minute, and now you swap the positions. It's Asa Hurst assisting Alfie Lally on a goal, and you're up 2-0 after the 34th minute. Talk about that goal.
Yeah, Asa played a good ball into Alfie, and as we keep telling Alfie in training and games, he's one of the best finishers that we've got. So we keep telling him to be a little bit more selfish and take shots more. He stuck a great ball, and it ended up going in. So nice 2-0 lead. So
you're up 2-0 after halftime. Your third goal comes from a connection you've already had once in the week. Fran scores in the 62nd minute with an assist from Alfie. Talk about that goal.
Yeah, we've kind of mixed it up a little bit with Alfie. We're trying to find him some new positions where he can be a little bit more effective. So we ended up playing him out on the left where he can cut inside onto his right foot. He cut inside and whipped in a great ball. And Fran is really good in the air, surprisingly. A lot of people don't realise how good he is in the air with his timing and his movement. And he just stepped in front of the goalkeeper, got a big leap off, and then won the flick on and scored the goal. So it was a nice way for him to finish the game.
So obviously you go on and you win 3-0. We definitely want to talk about the performance of the goalkeeper. You let Brendan Thomas get first start of the year, and it really paid off for you. And I think people would look at it and go, well, did Brendan just have to sit back there and do nothing? No, he made 7 saves. Mm-hmm. You're making your first start of the year this deep in the season. You make 7 saves and get a clean sheet. That's a great performance.
Yeah, definitely. And he's one of those that we've been talking about who's been working hard in training. He's one of those guys that just gets on with the job, works as hard as he can, and he's been patient, waiting for his opportunity. So it was nice to give him a reward, and it was excellent to see him pull off some good saves and get a clean sheet.
And so obviously up next for the guys will be the same team that the girls will be facing. You'll have the Holmes Bulldogs, but what do you know about the Bulldogs coming into this one? I know it's a team that they're a little bit scrappy. They always fight, but what do you know about the team coming in?
Yeah, they've had a little bit of a difficult run this season. I know in terms of results, it's not been the best season for them, but again, anyone in this conference can beat anybody. So we've just got to make sure we switch on, do the little things right as a team, and hopefully come away with the 3 points.
All right, that'll wrap up the soccer part of our show this week. Tom, again, thanks for joining us. Coming up next, we'll talk with football head coach Glenn Davis about how the Wolves did on the road at Coahoma in their upcoming match against the Bulldogs of Gulf Coast. Welcome back in. Thanks for joining us back after that break. Joining me now is head football coach Glenn Davis. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
And Coach, obviously your guys coming off a win, did exactly what they needed to do, got the win, stayed relatively healthy, and you're getting ready for the next one. Talk about how your guys played up at Coahoma this past Saturday.
Well, we've kind of had a rash of injuries, so we've kind of had to play a lot of different guys, which have to give them credit for being so resilient and fighting through it, not using that as an excuse. And we didn't play our best game, but I thought we played well enough to win, and that's what we had to do, was to win.
Coach, obviously, we'll start like we always do. We'll talk about some impact players. I think you look at the box score, no bigger impact than in the rushing game. In a game where your passing game really kind of felt a little off, your running game really picked up. You had both your running backs went over 200 yards. We'll start with Trey. Trey Minor led the way, had 20 carries for 119 yards and had 2 touchdowns. Talk about his play and how he stepped up over the last couple of weeks.
I mean, Trey's played well. The biggest thing with him is, from a coaching perspective, is we got to protect the football better. He had 2 fumbles, lost 1, but running the football, Trey has done a great job, and he's been a big need for us to stepping forward with some of the other injuries we've got at running back right now.
And then obviously your other running back, the one that everybody knows about, Johnny. Johnny finally eclipses the 100-yard mark this year. He had 13 carries, 116 yards, and a touchdown. Talk about how he was able to be complimentary to Trey and how they really complement each other throughout the whole game.
I mean, it was big for Johnny also, and both of those guys have really. Kind of gotten better and better as the season's gone on. Johnny, he's been consistent pretty much all the time, and Trey's gotten better, and we're excited about having both of them and both of them being healthy, and that to me that's a big thing.
And again, we did talk about passing game. Didn't have the best day out there, but Jalen Smith still had a solid game. He had 5 receptions, 54 yards. Just talk about how he played and how he was able to just come up with big plays in crucial moments.
Well, I mean, we've done some stuff screen-wise to get Jalen the ball, and, he's taking advantage of that, with his return skills, all that helps. Volume was a little bit high, and, the wind was, it was really windy, so that sometimes that plays a big effect on passing game, and so we were able to run the football, and that's kind of what we hung our hat on.
And excuse me, we talk about him every week, but the defense once again just came up big, held Coahoma to just 86 yards rushing. I think that's the 3rd lowest amount of rushing a team's had on you all year, but then held them to 194 yards total, and that is the lowest total all year. You had 7 sacks, 2 or 3 forced fumbles. Just talk about how that unit played as a whole, and then we'll talk about a couple of the players.
I mean, they did. I mean, the whole group played really well. They ran to the football, and I think those are things that you'll see when you watch the game, and just how hard they play. And to me, that's something that the coach and them have instilled in the guys, and they've hung their hat on that week in, week out, is to run to the football and play, how hard they play.
And one of the guys we want to talk about, if you were on our social medias yesterday, you saw this already, but Billy Pullen for the second time this year, earned MACCC Defensive Player of the Week. He had a huge game, 6 tackles, wasn't the leading tackle on the team, but where he did lead the team, 3.5 sacks. It seemed like every time they got any kind of momentum going, Billy was there to get a huge sack and really kind of stop momentum.
He did. He played well, and he's been battling some injuries, and Billy's kind of another one of those guys on our defense that how hard he plays. He kind of sets the tone for us defensively and for our entire football team.
And I think another one of your DBs, one of your sophomore DBs, Navarian Benson, again, 6 total tackles. That was good enough for being tied 3rd on the team, him and Billy and one other player. But I think where Navarian really stood out too is he blocked a field goal on special teams, he got you an interception, and he broke up another pass. Just talk about how, that's a guy when you've looked at him a lot of times, he's kind of been over there on an island a lot of times because he's one of your outside DBs. But talk about how well he played last week.
He did. He played really well. I mean, anytime you talk about a guy having tackles and pass breakup, interception, and a block field goal or punt, those are things that point wise when you start figuring up points for defensive players. I mean, his points system probably was higher than Billy's, and and he played really well. Jerron Manning's another guy. He had a blocked field goal, had 10 tackles, had 5 solos and 5 assists, and so both of those guys in the secondary played really well and had a direct plays in the game that changed the play of the game.
Jerron coming off got the block punt, coming off a game where he really sealed the win against Southwest. He's continued to step up and play well for you as well too. We'll jump into the scoring now. This week, every week we talk about you want to start fast. This week you did. You scored on your opening possession. Trey gets his first score of the game, a little 4-yard rush, capped off a 7-play, 47-yard drive. I believe that drive set up by the blocked punt by Jerron Manning. But just talk about that drive and talk about how well Trey ran the ball during that drive.
Well, really during that drive, it was really Johnny Daniels that got us to that point. He comes out, Trey scores the next play, and those is kind of where you talk about guys complimenting each other and coming in and there not being a drop off. So to me, that was the biggest thing, is us running the football, Johnny having a good drive, and then Trey came in and finished it off.
And then Brandon Gillum hits that PAT. So you're up 7-0. You've got 11:02 left in the first half. And there for a second, you kind of thought maybe Coahoma's going to respond, going to do something. They lined up for a field goal, and that's one that you blocked. Unfortunately, I believe Christopher Burnett blocked that one, but then unfortunately he was called for a roughing the kicker penalty because he did run into the kicker. So that extends the drive. Coahoma gets to line up for it again, and then you block it again. So really you get 2 field goal blocks, only one of them count, but this was when Benson blocked his and then Burnett recovered it. Talk about how big that play was and how it really kind of shifted momentum back to your guys.
Really big, because the first block, they said that we didn't touch the ball. It was roughing the kicker. So if you block a kick and rough the kicker, there's no penalty. And so they said that you can see definitely on film that it was a blocked field goal. But the kids, like I say, they kept battling, and defensively they held them out and then kept them off the score, and so that was mighty big.
And then the offense kind of sputters a little bit there for a little while. It feels like you kind of don't get a lot of things going. You're moving the ball, you're just not finding the end zone. But then you do line up for a 38-yard field goal. Unfortunately, Gillum misses that one, so the score holds at 7-0. You're in the second quarter, but then once again your defense just kept stepping up. You got interceptions from Zyrian Jackson, and Benson got another one. Talk about how the defense just continually just came up with plays, continued to stop the momentum, and just kept y'all in the game.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, we always talk about answering plays of whether it's a play or a drive. One side of the ball has to do that. If the opposing team's offense goes in and score offensively, we've got to go answer that drive. And same thing defensively. If they make a play on them, they got to go back and answer the next play. And so I think that's kind of what those guys and this football team has done all year, is do those kind of things and make those kind of plays. And really proud of them for that.
And then the first half ends with Coahoma once again lining up for another field goal. They missed that one wide left. So despite not having your best output offensively in the first half, you're still up 7-0. Talk about the feeling going into halftime knowing that you got that lead.
Well, it was one of those things that could have been 24-0 at halftime. And, that's the thing we talked to them about, is that, play to your ability, not somebody else's ability. And we challenged them on that all week. And, I thought the guys really came out and answered that, the second half, because I think we scored on 2 consecutive drives offensively, and that was big.
We did score on back-to-back drives there, as you mentioned. Came out on that opening possession of the second half, so opening possession start the third quarter. You score on that one. It's an 11-yard run from Trey Minor. He capped off a 7-play, 60-yard drive. Talk about that drive again. Another play, I think, where you saw Johnny and Trey kind of working together, and Trey got the touchdown because of it. But just talk about how well that drive looked.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, like I say, you want to answer coming out of the halftime, and I thought that's what the offense did, and offensive coaches, did a good job of getting the kids ready to go out there and let's execute and play your best.
And then defense gets you a stop. You get the ball back, and then this is where Johnny gets his touchdown. And it was a drive. It was a long drive, seven plays, 92-yard drives. 35 of it came on a play when Johnny scored. He bust through the Tiger defensive line, and there was nobody in front of him. He just ran until he hit his head on the goalpost. Talk about that play in that drive.
It was big. It was blocked up extremely well. I mean, there was a big hole in there. I mean, there was a couple of the coaches said they could have run through the hole too. So, it was that big, and he did a great job of getting through it and scoring, and receivers downfield blocking, and anytime you have a long run, you have to be doing something right, not just 8 or 9 guys doing it. It's all the 11 guys doing what they're supposed to do.
I think all of us who were in the visiting press box or visiting media box statting when Johnny broke through, we were all like, well, he's gone. No one's catching him there. And so your defense continues to step up. You continue to just stall them out. Offensively, you continue to move the ball, but you don't find the end zone again. Lone score for the Tigers does come on a 40-yard scoop and score. I think that was Trey's second fumble. So like you mentioned, you'd like to have a little more ball security, but overall, you get out of there with that 20-6 win. You've got to be feeling really good now going into your next game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short week. That's the negative of all of it. The guys have handled it well, practiced this week, and normally, a Saturday game, Thursday game, you don't really want to have to do those very often. But we've got a strong Gulf Coast team that we're going to play, and I think our kids will be ready to do that.
And you just mentioned it. Next up, on the road on Thursday at the number 4 team in the nation, the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College Bulldogs. And, if you look at their scores, they've just kind of been running roughshod over all the teams they've faced so far. But what do you know about that bunch and what they've been able to do so far this year and what the matchup's going to look like for us?
Well, I mean, they lead every offensive category that you can see: scoring, rushing offense, total offense. And then defensively, they're number 1 team in the state defensively. So, they're a great football team, and we're going to take all of our guys down there and put Band-Aids on them as much as we can, and we're going to go play.
All right, well, that'll wrap up the football portion of our show this week. Again, Wolves on the road facing off against number 4 Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College Bulldogs. And then on Friday, soccer facing off against the Lady Bulldogs and Bulldogs of Holmes here at Stone Stadium. I'm Kevin Kaiser, Sports Information Coordinator here at Co-Lin. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.